Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's podcast guest, but we want to give a shout out to our partners, the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, We Coach, the Florida Coaches Coalition, and Vital Signs Wall of Fame. 4 great organizations that you should be a part of, so check them out and add them to your network. Now, don't fast forward. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes. Listen to our podcast sponsor shout outs. These are all great products. You should have them at your school. So please stay with us. We want to say thanks to Gipper for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Gipper can help you create world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to Gipper.com to get started and create world-class content for your school. Use our podcast code ADPOD10 and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. If you go to hometownticketing.com, they're going to show you how to set up and sell tickets for all your events, not just athletics, but things like school plays, school concerts, even graduation. And the best part, every step of the way, I'll have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Sideline Interactive products not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo, and see their tables and their boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director. sidelineinteractive.com. Check them out today. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their entire platform of areas that you can use at your school, including Snap Store, Snap Manage, Snap Connect, and of course, Snap Raise, their fundraising platform. We've used it with great success. They've helped schools just like yours raise over $700 million. They even have a program where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think anybody else has that. Go to snapraise.com and get started today. That's snapraise.com. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is an interactive touchscreen video console that's going to highlight your school's top performers, both past and present, in athletics, academics, and the arts. But it's so much more than that. The Wall of Fame is also an extensive content program that's going to allow you to tell more compelling stories that'll better engage your audience. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products. When you're ready to buy, use the link vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake and get 5% off. That's Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Check them out today. We want to thank Huddle for their support. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. Huddle is going to provide your school with the tools that'll help your coaches, your athletes, and your teams play at the highest level. Huddle is going to provide a professional-grade solution to the challenges that you face as an athletic director. Go to huddle.com, see why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms. Whether you're an athletic director, an IT professional, or even a superintendent, Final Forms is going to help you prepare for your best season ever. Help your stakeholders with keeping track of all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Help your coaches with their own certification management, as well as communication with their teams. And for you as an AD, Final Forms is going to help you with all the reports that come across your desk. It's time that you talk to someone who gets it. For more information, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and get started with Final Forms. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com and they will show you how they can create a custom survey that allows you to take the pulse of your parents, your student athletes, and your coaches. Typically, an athletic director only hears back from that 2%, the squeaky wheel parent or the frustrated athlete. And we need to hear back from them so we can affect positive change. But athletic surveys connects you with the 98% that really love and support your program. Lets you take the pulse of those parents and student athletes. For more information, go to Final Forms, go to athleticsurveys.com and see what they can do for you. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Got a really cool guest today. She is not an athletic director, but she is from the world of sports. Our guest is Courtney Funchess. She is an NFL agent and contract advisor. She's also going to tell you about a venture called Sideline Synergy, and I'm really excited to hear her story. Courtney Funchess, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great opportunity to kind of educate the world about what NFL agents are really about. So thank you for having me.
Well, again, we appreciate this. As we said, this is a very busy time for you with, combines and drafts and everything going on, but let's go and jump right in. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Want to hear about your high school and college days. So what's the Courtney Funchess story?
Okay, so born and raised in Metro Detroit. I recently moved back to the area in 2019. I grew up in Farmington Hills, Michigan. I went to Harrison High School. I played sports all 4 years and was very involved um, academically and athletically while I was there. So that was kind of where I, grew the passion to work in sports in whatever capacity. I went to the University of Michigan for 5 years. I double majored in sport management and sociology. And while I was there, I interned with the recruiting department on the football team. I worked under Chris Singletary, who was the director of player personnel at the time. And I was like, okay, I might enjoy working in college athletics. Like this might be a thing. I graduated. I pursued my master's at Tiffin University. It was an online program, so I had the flexibility to kind of move around. And while I was pursuing my master's, I ended up getting an internship in New Orleans with the All-State Sugar Bowl. So I was working in marketing events. I got a chance to dip my feet in the water in the New Orleans market, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then I ended up just figuring out, hitting the ground running, and now I'm here.
Well, let's go back to, those high school years. Something that athletic directors always talk about is the importance of the multi-sport experience. And I know sometimes, hopefully the pendulum's swinging a little bit, but I know that we're in an age of specialization now. So what was your experience as a multi-sport athlete, and how do you think it helped you?
Well, I played, I was on the cheer team for both football and basketball. So during the fall is sideline, in the winter is competitive. And then I also ran track, and I loved running track. I was a 400, 4x400 relay. And for me, it was like, you have to love the sport if you want to run the four in the four by
Yes,
four.
you
Like
do.
you
Yep.
have to love it. And some people just run track for conditioning. Like you'll see a lot of football players that will run for conditioning so they can stay in shape for the next season to come around. And like me and my girls, like we really enjoyed it, but I learned very quickly, like I wasn't going to be able to make a career out of it, going to the next level. So it was like, okay, you have to think about something differently. And that's in my last years when I decided that I wanted to work underneath our athletic trainer. So that I was working under her, interning and helping her out, taping and doing whatever for football. I got the experience. And I think that from a AD's perspective is like allowing student athletes to be exploratory and learning and understanding if this is something that they want to do, working in sports, whatever that capacity is really giving them the opportunity to know that the opportunities are out there.
Right. No, and that's such a great point. Whether, for an athletic director listening, whether you're at a big school or a smaller school, you have students at your school right now. They might not be on your teams, but they're still kind of sports geeks, and they would love that opportunity to be in, let's say, game day management, or as you mentioned, working with as a student trainer. Great stuff. I love it. And as a former 400 hurdle guy, you and I are, definitely we're seeing eye to eye on that. For our listeners, our guest today is Courtney Funchess. She is an NFL agent and contract advisor. Also involved in entrepreneurship with Sideline Synergy. We're going to hear more about both of those, but let's take our first break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to Gipper.com and tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Use our code ADPOD10 and you'll get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to set up and sell tickets for your events online, not just athletic events, but things like school dances, school plays and concerts, even graduation. They're not only going to do that, but every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and get started. Simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Courtney Funchess, an NFL agent. Courtney, you kind of shared a little bit about your journey from Michigan, and I think you took us up to when you were in New Orleans. But talk about that early career and how maybe the decision about becoming an NFL agent and how that actually took place. And again, share with our listeners the book that you wrote about how to become an NFL agent.
Okay. So I started working in sports really when I was in college. I interned with the recruiting department for the football team. I worked under Chris Singletary, who was the director of player personnel at the time. And he was actually a former agent. And so he literally called me down to his office one day and was like, "Hey, do you want to work for the team?" And I was like, "Absolutely. Why not?" 5 years later, it was like, okay, this is something that I'm really interested in. I think the biggest part that I enjoyed when I was working with the team was connecting with those prospective players. They're being recruited, connecting with them and their families, and giving them my perspective of what it's like to be, a student, and what it's like being a part of the team and the department itself. So being able to provide that real life experience and have those real life conversations, so they're making informed decisions about joining the team. You know what I mean? So to tell them like being a Michigan student is not for play. And then also adding on the responsibility of playing on the team. So having those real life conversations with the families was my favorite part of the job. And so fast forward, I graduated. I started my master's program and I ended up applying and accepting the position in New Orleans with the All-State Sugar Bowl. So a little bit different. I worked in the operations, marketing and events side. So I did a lot of like advertising development, designing for advertising and marketing. And we did a lot of like high school or amateur athletics events. So we hosted a lot of events for high school athletics in the New Orleans area. And then fast forward to the the winter leading into January, where we had the actual Sugar Bowl game. That's when, so between October and January, we really are honed in on that game and making sure details are put together and finalized for that game. So that was a great experience. Months after the game, I got a phone call from the Saints, and they were like, "Do you want to work for us?" And I was like, "What? Like, how did y'all get my number?" So that was the first thought. Is like, so my biggest thing is like, I always work with integrity and I always work with my head down, because you never know when you may get a phone call because somebody's been watching you from afar. So you work like somebody's watching. And they called me, they wanted me to come in and work for the public relations department. So I worked for the Saints and the Pelicans and their public relations team. I left New Orleans in 2019. I moved back home and kind of just reset and was like, okay, what are we doing? Like, what do we enjoy doing, and how do we figure out how to get back to it? And I was like, okay, I love recruiting. I don't think I could work on the collegiate side. I don't think I would ever want to work for a team again. But how can I still stay aligned with this? And there is a void to be filled in this realm and in this career path, because um some players just aren't taken care of like an agent will promise to on the front end. And for me, it's like, I want to make sure my players are taken care of on and off the field. They're able to make informed decisions. And I saw that a little bit at the collegiate level. When I worked in the professional level, I was like, okay, so there still is something missing from the transition. And I, decided to pursue this career as, a way to fill that void and provide the necessary accommodations for my clients and potential clients. So applied for the exam in 2020. COVID shut us down. Fast forward to 2021, I sat for the exam, passed the exam, and hit the ground running. I was contacted by the CEO of Pyramid Sports Group, and he was like, "I'm expanding my team. Would you like to come work for us?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" So I am now the director of football operations, and I, take care of the things that I need to take care of on the football side, and make sure that recruiting, we're able to do what we need to do to be successful in the years to come. So
Wow. Appreciate you sharing that process, because it's not just something, that happens overnight. Hey, I think I'm going to be an agent. Okay. Well, no, all of those other experiences that you had, helped prepare you for that moment. Um, now that you've, kind of been boots on the ground for a while, what's something that has surprised you about, let's say the life of an agent, or what's involved, and what's something that, we all have different skill sets. What's something that you feel is, your go-to, that and this is me talking, this isn't you, that you are better than anybody else at this. Anything jump out?
um I can have a conversation with just about anybody. I think that being an agent is about being relatable and being able to pull out the relatability with any and everybody. So I'm very social. I'm like a introverted extrovert, like an extroverted introvert. So like I, kind of like to be a little solo and quiet, but I can have a conversation with just about anybody, and being able to connect with people, um, and network with people and build relationships and develop that. It's very, very important. And it's not a skill that a lot of people have. So, and I think that the most important thing with being, an agent alongside of, negotiating contracts, and it's developing and maintaining relationships. Like, I could call up coaches and staff that I work with when I was with Michigan football to this day, wherever they are, and we can sit down and have a conversation, and it be like, we never skipped a beat. Same thing with the staff that I work with when I was with the Sugar Bowl. Same thing with the staff that I work with when I was with the Saints and the Pelicans. And I actually run into a lot of them that I have worked with at the combine every year. And, we'll chop it up at, different venues that we are visiting, in between workouts and whatever, but it's being able to develop and maintain relationships, being able to be social while also keeping in mind the importance of having those connections. So I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing.
You talk about the relationships. That's one of the most frequently mentioned tools in our athletic director toolbox. It's about the people. Um, let's go and give a shout out to your book. You've
Yeah.
produced a book, How to Become an NFL Agent. Talk about that a little bit, and then let our listeners know where they can get their own copy.
Yeah. So I learned early that a lot of people want to be an agent. Everybody's like, I think I want to be like, how do you? And I think the biggest thing for me and a lot of my colleagues that I'm close with at this level is we did our own research. Like, but in doing your own research, there isn't a lot of like day to day. What does the day to day look like? And I have a lot of students that'll reach out to me like, I want to intern, but it's like, I don't have work for you to do every single day. So an internship doesn't really make sense. How they'll have like a semester long internship and they'll get credit for it, or a summer internship, but it's like during the summer I don't do a lot of work. After the draft is over, I'm recruiting, yes, but like on a day to day I'm not doing a lot. So it's a lot. So being able to put pen to paper and kind of detail my journey from beginning to end and fill in the gaps that aren't provided by the NFLPA website and some of the things that I was able to do or needed to do leading up to, passing the exam through my first year. Those things aren't out there. So that's why I decided to, create the ebook. It is on the Sideline Synergy website underneath the products post, sidelinesynergy.com, underneath the products page, and the book is there. It's $15. And it really does go into deep detail about how to get from A to B in becoming an agent. There's a 12-step guide on what to do. So I really, use that as a tool for those that are interested and can't find the additional information that's not listed on the website.
Appreciate you sharing that. And again, the website is, we'll do it again at the end of the podcast, sidelinesynergy.com. Our guest is Courtney Funchess, author and NFL agent and contract advisor. We're going to take another quick break, but we'll be back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards for their support of the podcast. One of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive score table. We used it for home games, of course, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo, and see their tables and their boards in action. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Snap Mobile is the parent company for an entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. There's Snap Connect, Snap Manage, Snap Store, and of course, there's Snap Raise, their fundraising platform. We used it with great success at my school, and you can too. They even have a program where they will give you your money before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think anyone else offers that. Go to snapraise.com and get started today. That's snapraise.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Courtney Funchess, NFL agent, contract advisor, author, and entrepreneur. Courtney, one of the things that we always ask our guests to share is the mentors that they've had in their lives. None of us get to where we're at on our own. So you mentioned a couple of names, and you can certainly mention them again, but who are some of the folks that have helped you along the way?
I'll start with Chris Singletary. Again, he was the director of player personnel when I was at Michigan. He is now an agent. I believe he's on the collegiate side again. Because he was coaching, not coaching, he was representing coaches for an agency, but now I think he's at a different agency and is now representing players again. So the biggest thing that I learned from him was just like be yourself, authentically yourself, but also, stay true to the things, the morals that you have. Like being a good person goes a long way. He's very family oriented. His wife also worked at Michigan while I was there. So like I know his family. We connected actually in Indy at the combine a couple months ago. And I was like, it's so great to see you. We catch up about his kids. His kids are like 11 now. And I was like, I was there when they were born. That's crazy. They're that old now. So it's just like keeping in mind, like, yes, this is a business, but we can still be human beings. And I think that's the biggest thing. Mary Passing, she was the program director for the interns when I was at Michigan football. And Mary had everything together. Like from making sure game days were straight, making sure that the interns were taken care of, and she had work for us, but she treated us like we were her kids. And I really appreciate that. Like when Mary was in office, and she's retired now, but when she was in office, if we had graduated, she would welcome us open arms coming back to the program, to help, to come stop by. The door was always open for us, and I really appreciated her for that. Justin Massione, my manager when I was with um, the Saints, and everybody loves Justin. Justin will do any and everything for anybody. Might have to give him a little time because he has a lot on his plate, but he always checks in with me like on a quarterly, like, hey Court, like how's it going? How are you doing? His family is phenomenal. I love his wife. He just set the blueprint. Like he was the one who gave me an opportunity with the Saints. While I was there, I was working in public relations, but he was like, is there anything else that if there's ever anything else you want to do, let me know and I can help to my best ability. And I knew that working in public relations, I needed to get writing skills. Like I needed to learn how to write. So I was always going out with the players during the week to their events that they have in the community. And when I would get back, I would be like, so, I go every week. Like, is there any opportunity for me to write about the trips that we go on? He was like, absolutely. And he would publish them in the game books every week. So every week I would go out on Tuesdays with the players in the community. I would write about it, have it done by Wednesday, and it would be published in the game book on Sunday. So he was the one who really instilled in me like closed mouths don't get fed. If there's any opportunity that you want to take advantage of, ask for it. What's the point of being here and not being able to do all of the things that you came here to do? Like take advantage of the opportunity. And so I think those are three people that I really am like. Patrick Collins, who works for CAA, he's an agent. I worked with him when I was at Michigan football. When Brady Hoke administration left, he sat for the exam and took the exam that year, and that's when he got certified to be an agent. And his career, he hit the ground running right off the bat and started. And Patrick, I literally can reach out to Patrick for any and everything. Like, hey Pat, how's it going? How are you doing? You know what I mean? We try to connect every year at the combine. I think this year he was there for a couple of days and then he had to go to a wedding out of the country. So it's just like just keeping those relationships. I think that's the biggest thing. But just I think you never know where your career is going to lead to you. So back to the importance of having, the relationships where you can just reach out because you've, done what you needed to do, but be able to reach out and reconnect and, ask for help or provide assistance wherever needed.
Yeah, again, I always love to hear the stories behind those mentors. And once again, you hit on the importance of building those relationships and adding to your network. Courtney, you've again, you're much younger than I am. I'm retired, but you've already had a ton of different experiences at a very high level. One of the things we like to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What are some things that you've seen from, let's say, an organizational or a leadership perspective that have stayed with you that you can pass on to our listeners? Any best practices stick out for you?
I'll just so I currently work with an agency, Pyramid Sports Group. So for us and working operationally within our agency, I think the biggest piece is making sure that we're all on the same page. And I think communication is the biggest piece of, advice. Like best practice is like if once you're done meeting with a player or whatever, like making sure we make comments because we're all in different areas. I'm in Detroit. The CEO is based out of Miami. Our other agent is based out of Texas. So like we're all on different time zones. We're all in different places, but we all have to have the same information because say the CEO isn't available and I'm the next caller, a scout is going to hit me up and ask me about players, but I need to know the same information that the CEO has on a player that, he may be on his SRA. So for me, best practice is making sure that all communications are up to date, whether you're using shared documents via Google Docs or, have a shared folder on a OneDrive, like making sure that everybody has access to all of the information so that you are always on one page. We have a shared calendar. That is important because we need to know where we all are at a given time, like what meetings that we have booked, what players that we're recruiting. So having communication is very important. Being organized, I think, is another thing. I think another best practice is taking time for yourself and self-caring. Rest is important. If you don't get rest, you cannot operate at your highest potential. I just got off the road from a month of traveling last week. I got back on Thursday. On Friday, I booked a massage. Like, I am very serious about self-care. Living out of hotels, on flights every other day, it will, like, your energy will be drained. It will drain you. So, I think making sure you're taking care of yourself, because if you aren't taking care of yourself, you aren't going to be able to be there for your clients. So making sure you're putting your best foot forward, having open conversation and communication, and just being organized from top down.
Wow, those are truly some best practices. We'll talk about those more later when we get to the toolbox. For listeners, our guest today is Courtney Funchess. She's an NFL agent, contract advisor, successful author, and entrepreneur. We're going to take another break, but we'll be back with some more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is an interactive touchscreen video console that's going to highlight your school's top performers, both past and present, in athletics, academics, and the arts. But it's so much more than that. The Wall of Fame is also an extensive content program that allows you to tell more compelling stories to better engage your audience. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their great products. And when you're ready to buy, use the link vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake for a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school, and they gave our teams, our coaches, and our athletes the tools that they needed to play at the highest level. Go to huddle.com and see why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle School. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD podcast. We are actually recording this on Monday, April 3rd, so it's going to play very timely. And Courtney, you and I were talking during the break. Last night was the women's championship game. Great game. As a current, I still referee high school basketball. I thought the officiating was atrocious on both sides. It really was. But that's a different story. Twitter is just blowing up, as Twitter will, with, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark. I'm just curious. You mentioned you watched the game and everything. What are your thoughts on this, on the on the whole thing?
I think let athletes be athletes. Some things that come out in the games is like it's just a game. It's the passion of the game, and you can't choose how people celebrate. I think that Angel Reese is getting a lot of attention right now for, you know, how she may have celebrated, but it was a reaction to what Caitlin Clark did previously in a different series. So I just think that the scrutiny of the internet is always going to be there. I hope and pray that they don't take that as an opportunity to focus on that and take away from their athleticism and their performance throughout the season. Angel Reese had a phenomenal season. She's like one of the top performers. She broke a lot of records. Let's focus on that. You know what I mean? Like, let's not focus on something that could be seen as negativity. We want to make sure that we're spending it and keeping, what's important at the forefront, which is how they all perform throughout the year. They had a phenomenal tournament, and it just comes to being, the best team will become the best team, and that's who's going to be. But they both had a great season, and I just hope that the social media and the internet is able to focus on what their athleticism contributed to the tournament.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very wise way to look at it. It's the heat of the moment. Let athletes, be athletes, talk about celebrating, the way you want to. And, regardless of your opinion, not you, but anybody, our listeners, I think it would be a terrible thing if any of us were remembered for our worst moment. And that's probably not even close to anybody's worst moment. But again, yeah, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. Obviously, it's a well discussed event. Let's go and talk about something much more important than that. Sideline Synergy, really cool website. And I know it's just kind of recently, got up and running. Tell our listeners about that and tell them why they should be interested and reach out and connect with you.
So Sideline Synergy I created at the end of last year, and I really wanted to be able to create a program for Metro Detroit amateur athletes, and just provide information for them. We want to build community, and everybody's always talking about building and developing community and paying attention to certain details. But like I said earlier, going to the collegiate level is like, okay, they're missing some things at the professional level. These players, they get to the professional level and they're still missing some support or, very important resources in order to make them better people, be able to be functioning individuals in our society. And so I started Sideline Synergy to talk about, the process from amateurism to professionalism, what that looks like on the business side and football business side. What is an agent? We talk about that in depth. What type of services and opportunities do agents provide both on the field and off the field? We talk about marketing and the importance of branding and developing as a student athlete onto the professional level, especially with NIL being brought into the conversation. Um, Different resources or opportunities for people to connect with brands and programs that help them to become better athletes, what a diet, their nutrition should look like, what their training should look like, and just kind of developing them as a whole, well-rounded athlete, but person that can be able to operate within our society. I talk a great deal about preparing themselves for a second career. A lot of guys focus on, okay, I'm going to be a football player. I'm going to be a football player. I'm going to be, I'm going to be a basketball player. Like, I'm going to play tennis. I'm going to play, you know what I mean? And that's it. Why are we not talking about, okay, when you decide that your career is going to be over, whether voluntarily or involuntarily from injury, we need to be thinking about what that second career is going to look like. A lot of, some players, they'll go on to be broadcasters. Some of them will get into investing and work in real estate. There are some of my colleagues, former, athletes that now work in finance. But you have to start thinking about those things early on. And that's why I created the program. If nothing else, I just want to make sure that you're able to make informed decisions and you're educated. And I think that is my, philosophy as an agent. Even when I'm recruiting, I don't care if you decide to sign with me as an agent. I don't care if you decide that, you want to go sign with somebody else. My biggest thing is I was able to provide the information that you need to make an informed decision. Because you can never say after having a conversation to me, well, I didn't know X, Y, and Z, and they didn't tell me that because I'm going to put all the cards on the table. So really focusing on community development from the high school level on, providing that education, bringing the parents into it so the parents have the education on, what the business is from, high school level all the way up and through professionalism.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point too about it's not just about the student athlete, the family, the parents, going back to what you mentioned earlier about building those relationships. Very cool. Courtney, this has just been a lot of fun spending some time with you, getting to know you a little bit, but we're not done yet.
Okay.
We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, as you have shared, you're not an AD, but you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. So we're going to take our final break, hear from a couple of our sponsors. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new leader, brand new athletic director, maybe a brand new agent on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So please stay with us. We're going to be back, find out what Courtney Funchess is going to put into her new athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to say thanks to Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Go to finalforms.com and find out how you can prepare for your best season ever. Whether you're an athletic director, a school superintendent, even an IT professional, Final Forms has the tools to help you. They can help your stakeholders with things like mobile apps. They also have reminders about school policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help your coaches with their own certification as well as communication with their teams. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, all the reports that come across your desk. It's time that you talk to someone who gets it. For more information, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and prepare for your best season ever. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Athletic directors typically only hear back from that 2%, that squeaky wheel parent or a frustrated student athlete. And we need to hear from those people so we can affect positive change in our program. But athletic surveys also connects you with the 98% that really love and support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking to a parent or your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them create a custom survey for you to allow you to take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Courtney Funchess, an NFL agent, a contract advisor, successful author, and entrepreneur. And we've said this a couple of times. She's not an athletic director, but she certainly knows her way around the world of athletics. So, Courtney, right now, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new, and you can take your pick, athletic director, leader, or even NFL agent, a brand new leader. But I'm only going to let you put three things in their toolbox. What three items are going to go into Courtney Funchess's athletic director toolbox?
So I spent some brief time working in corporate recruiting. So I think that hiring talented team is very important, and diverse team. Um, Being able to, we talked about your network is important. So consulting with your peer community, um, and communication. And when I say communication, not only verbally, but also, listening, being able to receive things and hear things, especially as a athletic director or an agent. A lot of times being able to understand what the problem actually is that is being communicated so you can come up with a solution together, is important. So those are my three: hiring a talented and diverse team, being able to consult with your community and your peers in your network, and communicating effectively, including listening.
Well, those are all tremendous tools. I can imagine in your profession, the communication, you're not just talking with the student athlete, you're not just talking with, the athlete now, the pro athlete, but family members, I'm sure, try to insert themselves into that conversation. You're talking to, management, the owners, et cetera, lawyers. Wow, you really have got to be a pro at communicating. And I always love it when people talk about, building their team, hiring that great staff, very cool stuff. Courtney, again, this has just been wonderful spending some time with you. If one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain, find out a little bit more about Sideline Synergy, or get the book, how do they do all of those things?
So you can find me on social media, Sideline Synergy, on Instagram and Twitter. My personal page where I'll share the day to day when I'm traveling, at Courtney Bianca on Instagram, Courtney Funchess on LinkedIn. Sideline Synergy's website is sidelinesynergy.com. And I'm always there and reachable on those different platforms. If you want to email me, Courtney@sidelinesynergy.com.
Again, Courtney Funchess, thanks so much for spending time with us today. All the best as we move closer to the NFL draft. Hopefully it'll be a very busy and productive time for you and your clients. And thanks for spending time with us today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
For listeners, we do this just about every day, and we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, we appreciate you listening. We want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, We Coach, and the Florida Coaches Coalition. Check them out. And thanks again for listening to the Educational AD Podcast.